breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
A warmer from the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by a good friend of ours as we're going to be breaking down some baseball and having some fun with Tanner Kern. He does such great work over at DraftKings. We're going to be chatting with him about what we're all getting in these playoff races. I know that he's a fan of the Boston Red Sox, so we'll talk a little bit about them, and then we'll take a look at what we've all got on the slate on Tuesday in the final segment. Going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Tuesday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways we fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. While I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, everything is powered by EdgeBoost. EdgeBoost is making sure that bettors are able to have access to their funds whenever and wherever they want. With EdgeBoost, they make sure that 100% of gambling transactions do get approved, and when you go to EdgeBoost.bet, put in that promo code of Greg, G-R-E-G. That's going to get you a $1 for $1 match on your first deposit up to $25. Now let's take a look back at everything that we saw in baseball on Monday. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The top over team in all of baseball is the Toronto Blue Jays with 73 overs, 53 unders, and 6 pushes, and they were overwhelming once again on Monday. 10-4, they're able to take down the Minnesota Twins. Joe Ryan, not what he was looking for here. 6 runs allowed in 5 innings, including a pair of bombs, as Andres Gimenez get his 6th home run season, and don't call his name Alejandro Kirk, 11th home run season. From there, Genesis Cabrera, 2 scoreless innings, but Brooks Kriske gives up 4 runs in his inning work. Matt Wallner did hit a pair of home runs for Wallner, 18th and 19th home runs of the season, both come off a Mad Max Fury Road Scherzer, who gives up 4 runs in 6 innings, including those 2 bombs. From there, Justin Brule, 2 scoreless innings, and Tommy Nance was able to end a scoreless inning of his own. The Boston Red Sox, they come off of Sunday Night Baseball and they get the job done against the Baltimore Orioles. 4-3 the final is, where Boston, not necessarily what they were looking for out of one Mr. Richard Fitz, 6 strikeouts in 4 innings, but does allow 3 runs, including a home run to Colton Cowser, his 12th home run season. The opener, Brendan Bernardino, a scoreless inning though. Garrett Woodlock, Aroldis Chapman, scoreless inning apiece out of both of those, and Steven Matz, 2 scoreless innings. And for the Red Sox, pair of bombs out of Yuki Sugano, as Jaron Duran get his 13th home run season. Roman Anthony is 6th for Sugano, 4 runs allowed in 6 innings. Grant Wolfram, 2 scoreless innings. Corbin Burns, a scoreless inning, but not enough for the Orioles to get the job done there. The Marlins did enough to get the job done, though, as for the Atlanta Braves, they fall by a count of 2-1. Solid start here from Spencer Strider. He gives up 1 run in 7 innings, and then Pierce Johnson gives up a solo home run in the 8th inning, as it was home run number 3 of the season for one Maximo Acosta, but for the Marlins, he just got a really good start out of Edward Cabrera. How about 1 hit, 10 strikeouts, no runs allowed in 7 innings. Did have Calvin Fauché give up a solo home run to Drake Baldwin in the 9th inning, 14th home run season, but you did have Tyler Zuber, Josh Simpson combined for a scoreless inning, and the Marlins looking to be able to finish this season at 500. They got the job done there. For the Mets, things have been very much less than savory for them recently, but they savored this one 13-3. They take down the Philadelphia Phillies as Christopher Sanchez had his worst start in quite some time. 6 runs, 5 of which were earned, given up in 5 1/3 innings. From there, David Robertson, a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless, but Jordan Romano is doing what Jordan Romano does. 4 runs allowed in an inning, including a home run surrendered, and Joe Ross gave up 3 runs in his inning of work as going deep was Luis Torrens, his 3rd home run season. Kodai Senga not long for this game, by the way. 3 runs allowed in 4 innings, but a much maligned Mets bullpen actually came up big here. Ryan Elsley, Brooks Raley, Tyler Rogers, Joey Castillo, and Ryan Stanek all in scoreless innings. None of those guys allowed a single hit, so good on them and good on the New York Yankees for taking it to the Washington Nationals. 10-5 the final is. The Nationals are actually your top over team in the National League. 66 overs, 56 unders, and 9 pushes, and in this one, they gave it up all by themselves. As Brad Lord said, "Oh Lord, I gave up a lot of runs. 7 runs, 6 of which were earned. Give it up in 4 1/3 innings, including a pair of bombs." As Jazz Chisholm took him deep, 25th home run of the campaign, and Ben Rice, 21st home run of the season, and Yasan Dominguez a little bit later on off of Cole Henry, 10th home run season. Henry gives up 3 runs in his inning work, including that bomb. Jackson Rutledge, 5 outs out of the bullpen scoreless, and PJ Poulin, a scoreless inning, and you did have home run number 1 of the season for one Mr. Jacob Young, so that was nice. That comes off of Mark Leiter Jr. when it was too little too late. Leiter Jr. gives up that home run in a third of an inning as Cam Schlittler, really good start. 8 punch-outs and 6 scoreless innings. Yuri de Los Santos from there, not a great relief appearance. 4 runs allowed in 2 2/3 innings, but very, very large lead. They were able to get the job done there. For the Tampa Bay Rays, they get the job done over the Cleveland Guardians. 9-0, and after it looked like the Guardians might make the AL wildcard race interesting, not so much here. Tanner Bybee got completely shelled. 5 runs allowed over the course of 6 innings, and he did allow a pair of home runs along the way, going deep for the Tampa Bay Rays. Yandy Diaz, his 22nd home run of the campaign, and Junior Caminero, 38th home run season. Then Caminero will go deep off of Tim Herron for his 39th home run season. Herron gives up 3 runs in 2/3 of an inning. Austin Hedges, the backup catcher, gives up a run in an inning, and Jacob Junis for outside the bullpen scoreless. And Ian Seymour, first career start, very good one. 8 punch-outs, 1 hit allowed, and 5 scoreless innings. Kirk Clevenger, Brian Baker, both on his scoreless inning, and Mason Englert. He was able to give you 2 scoreless innings to polish that one off. The Angels polish off a shutout of the Walker Texas Rangers. 4-0 the final as for Jacob deGrom. He gives up 2 runs over the course of 5 innings. Not a great start, but hard to call it terrible. He does give up a home run along the way as Zach Neto gets his 22nd home run season, and Logan O'Hoppe, very O'Hoppe about getting his 19th home run season off of Jacob Webb, who gives up that home run in 2 innings of work. Luis Carvello gives up a run in an inning, and Robert Garcia, a scoreless inning of his own, but for Jose Soriano, continues to be really good on the road. A sub-275 road ERA this season. 5 2/3 innings scoreless. From there, Reed Detmers, Brocken O'Berg, Kenley Jansen, all in a scoreless inning, and Luis Garcia was able to give you an out of the bullpen scoreless. The St. Louis Cardinals get the job done against the Pittsburgh Pirates. This by a count of 7-6 for the Pirates. They did not get what they were hoping for out of the bullpen as Yuto Mets with the Johan Oviedo. Not necessarily a lot of length, but not a bad start. 1 run allowed over the course of 4 innings. Andrew Heaney from there, 2 outside the bullpen, and he gives up 5 runs, all of which were earned. Man, what a bad season from Colin Holderman from there, 4 outside the bullpen squirrels. Dennis Santana, he gives up a solo home run, a walk-off home run in the 9th inning as Alec Burleson gets his 16th home run of the season. And prior to that, you had Yuto mess with the Yohan Ramirez, not getting messed with, 2 scoreless innings. And for the Pirates, they got a pair of bombs of their own. Spencer Horwitz, 7th home run season off of Michael McGreevy. McGreevy gives one up to Brian Reynolds, his 14th home run season. As for McGreevy, 4 runs allowed in 6 innings. Kyle Leahy from there, an unearned run given up in an inning. It was based on his own throwing error, so he pretty much gave up that run. Jojo Romero from there, and out of the bullpen squirrels, and Riley O'Brien gets 5 outs. Does allow a run in the 9th inning as he gave up an RBI double, but the Cardinals able to bail him out and get him the W. The Kansas City Royals have been one of your best under teams in all of baseball this year. How about 57 overs, 73 unders, and 2 pushes? And, well, they got the under for you, but they didn't score. 7-0. The White Sox get the job done as Noah Cameron absolutely lit ablaze in this one. 6 runs allowed over the course of 5 innings, including a pair of home runs going deep for the Chicago White Sox. It was home run number 9 of the season for Brooks Baldwin. And Corey Lee, his first home run of the season, as Shane Smith was on it in this one. 1 hit allowed in 7 scoreless innings. Tyler Gilbert, 2 scoreless innings of his own. And for the Royals, Daniel Lynch in long relief, 1 run allowed in 2 innings. And Sammy Long, well, it wasn't long for this game, but he does give you a scoreless inning. And for the team with the best record in all of baseball, they get another win. The Brewers, they clinch a winning season. They're now 82-50. 7-5, they take it to the Arizona Diamondbacks as Eduardo Rodriguez gives up 5 runs over the course of 2 1/3 innings. And then from there, Bryce Jarvis in long relief wasn't bad, gives up 2 home runs in his 5 2/3 innings as Andrew Monasterio gets his 3rd home run season. And Mr. Caleb Durbin, his 9th home run season for the Brewers. Brandon Woodruff had a very rough 6th inning. He gives up 5 runs there, 5 2/3 innings, allows 5 runs all in the 6th, including a home run as Lourdes Gurriel gets his 19th home run season, but bullpen is back. Aaron Ashby, 5 outs of the bullpen squirrels. Nick Mears, pair of outs of the bullpen squirrels, and Ebner Uribe, a squirrels same thing to be able to get that one to the window. And also being able to get to the window, how about the Seattle Mariners going out there getting the job done by a count of 9-6 as the starting pitching in this game was not amazing. Bryce Miller does get the win, even though he gives up 4 runs over the course of 5 innings, including 3 bombs. Going deep for the Slam Diego Padres, you had Fernando Tatis Jr. get his 18th home run season, Jake Cronenworth his 10th, and Gavin Sheets his 18th. Ramon Laureano a little bit later on off of Edward Bizardo, his 20th home run season. Bizardo, a bizarre 1 run allowed in an inning. Caleb Ferguson, Matt Brash both give you a scoreless inning, and Andres Munoz does give up an unearned run as Eugenio Suarez had his 14th error of the season. And for the Seattle Mariners, it's the big 50. Cal Raleigh, big dumper, 50th home run season. That comes off of JP Sears. Oi, Polanco, he got a 0 on the back half of his home run total, 20th home run season. That also off of JP Sears, who did did not have a great start. 3 2/3 innings, 4 runs, 3 of which were earned, give it up, including 2 bombs, and David Morgan, who's been really good in this bullpen. 1 inning pitch, 5 runs allowed, all of which were earned from their Yuki Matsui. 2 scoreless innings, Wandy Peralta, 1 1/3 inning scoreless, but too little too late at that juncture, and then these 2 games are still going on as I do this. I have to have this up by midnight Pacific, 3 o'clock a.m. Eastern, but both of these look relatively done. The A's go into the 9th inning up by a count of 8-3 over the Detroit Tigers. For the Tigers, Shriek Skubal, 6 runs allowed in 6 2/3 innings, only 1 of which was earned. He had 12 strikeouts. Zach McKinstry had a fielding error and a throwing error in this one that really did not help his cause, and for Skubal, he would from there just completely unravel in the 7th inning as he allows a pair of home runs. Going deep for the Athletics, Shea Langoliers. Shea bangs his 29th home run of the season. Then it was home run number 4 of the campaign for the young gun in Colby Thomas. A little bit later on, you had Mr. Nick Kurtz get his 27th home run of the season. That comes off of the newly called up Drew Summers as he allows that home run, 1 run in total in 2/3 of an inning. Brendan Hennepy, he allows a run in 2/3 of an inning as well. And then Gleyber Torres was able to go deep off of JT Ginn and Juice. His 14th home run season for Ginn. Not a bad start here. 3 runs allowed in 5 1/3 innings. Being that Sacramento has been playing the way that it has, that's pretty solid. Michael Kelly, Sean Newcomb from there, they both give you 4 outside the bullpen scoreless, and Elvis Alvarado, unless he gives up 5 runs, he was able to complete this one and be able to get the job done, and currently doing this as the Dodgers are going into the 9th inning against the Cincinnati Reds. They are leading by a count of 7-0, so the only thing in question is that 8.5 total, as Hunter Green, not the start he was looking for, 5 runs, 3 of which were earned, given up by him, including a pair of bombs. You had Mr. Andy Paz get a pair of home runs, 22nd and 23rd home runs of the campaign, and Emmett Sheehan was tremendous. 2 hits in 7 scoreless innings, 10 punch-outs. Jack Dreher from there, a scoreless inning, and we'll see what the Dodgers do to try to polish off that 9th inning as Scott Barlow in the Reds bullpen. He had a scoreless inning. Sam Moldo, he gives up a home run in 2/3 of an inning as it was Mookie Betts taking him deep for his 14th home run of the campaign, and then you got Connor Phillips coming out of the bullpen. 1 1/3 innings, he allowed a run along the way as well. And if you're looking trend-wise at Major League Baseball right now, it has been an underwhelming season, though, over the last 7 and 30 days. We have been seeing that trend northward. Overall for the season, the underrate is 51.3%, 962 unders to 915 overs. That's about 51.3%. And for favorites, they're at about 57% on the money line this year, 1,107 and 838 on the money line. If you look at the last 7 days of Major League Baseball, favorites have been odd, 55 and 38 on the money line. That's a little bit over 59%, and the over rate, 58.6%, 51 overs at 36 unders. And if you look at the last 30 days in Major League Baseball, favorites sitting pretty much at the season average at 57.2%, 223 and 167. Meanwhile, the over rate, 53.4%, 187 overs and 172 unders. So that's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's what we're all getting trend-wise. Coming next, how about if we do chat with our good friend Tanner Kern of DraftKings right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
We're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Tanner Kern, who does such an amazing job over at DraftKings, taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball, and he really is a 5-tool performer over there at DraftKings. He does a lot of great video content. He does great work on the football front, the basketball front. He's been doing a little bit of UFC. Heck, if you need this man for hot dog eating, I don't know if he's necessarily going to be able to put down 60 hot dogs, but he can help you handicap a hot dog eating contest. So he does a little bit of everything. You're able to follow him on the old Twitter/X at his first and last name, Tanner Kern. Last name is spelled Kern with an underscore after that. And Tanner, it's great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Greg. I wish I could eat 50 hot dogs or 60 hot dogs. That'd be awesome.
That'd be tremendous. If I could eat all those hot dogs and not gain weight, that would be the American dream right there. Unfortunately, we live on planet Earth, but that said, we also live on planet Earth with regards to these playoff races, and just how do you take a look at the landscape right now? Because I do think in the American League, we're starting to get a little bit of traction with the Mariners and the Red Sox. I've been liking what I've been seeing out of those teams, but it once again feels like something we've talked about all summer long, just a very open landscape in baseball this season.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, Greg. Anybody from the Blue Jays, Tigers, Astros, as far as division leaders, can win the American League. When you look at the wild card race, the Red Sox are good enough to do it. Now, watching the Red Sox consistently every night, there's definitely a lot of flaws in their game, but if they get hot at the right time, no reason they can't get it done. New York Yankees, as bad as they are, they still have a chance. It's going to be a slim one based on how they play, and especially the dumb mistakes they've been making in the field over the weekend. That was crazy, but you can't rule them out. Seattle Mariners as well. They're probably the most dangerous complete team in the American League right now, but they have not looked the part against some bad competition overall. But their schedule's very easy for the remainder of the season, so I do think they'll finish strong. But yeah, anybody really who gets in, I think, has a chance in the American League right now.
Yep, I do think so as well. And I really do think that it's the same way in the National League, because with the Milwaukee Brewers, even though they've got the best record, they just took a series loss against the San Francisco Giants. And I am a man from the great state of Wisconsin. I've been loving this season from the Brewers, but if you watch this Brewers team with your own two eyes, they don't really look like a team as like some sort of juggernaut. The Dodgers are supposed to be a juggernaut, but they have not been healthy all season long, and they're dealing with injuries once again. The Philadelphia Phillies are without Zach Wheeler. The New York Mets are completely imploding all over themselves. The Chicago Cubs have been having issues, and it feels like in the National League, every one of these teams is flawed as well.
Yeah, I mean, same thing that we're looking at in the American League, right? Every team in baseball right now has flaws. Even the Los Angeles Dodgers, and you notice their odds for the World Series, they were about 2-1, plus 230, depending on the book you were getting at. They're up to 3-1 and approaching 4-1 in some places right now, honestly, from what I've seen, just because they're a team that has not looked the part. The New York Mets have struggled. The Phillies just lose Zach Wheeler, right? The Cubs, the Brewers, the Padres. I think all these teams can compete. The National League is definitely more competitive. Like, I can't pinpoint who is necessarily going to get it done in the National League right now, just because there's so many uncertainty there, where I can look to like the Seattle Mariners and say they are at least the most complete team in the American League right now. So in the National League, definitely a more competitive race in my opinion, but still wide open.
Yep, absolutely. And I do think that it's going to be a lot of fun to see what we get out of all of these teams moving forward, as Tanner Kern, who does such a tremendous job over at DraftKings, he's joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And the team that is near and dear to you, the Boston Red Sox, they're going to be taking on the Baltimore Orioles on Tuesday, and you don't see this very often. An MLB debut in late August for Kyle Bradish, season debut, not necessarily career debut, but right now with the Orioles, they're a very slight underdog, like even money or so, against the Red Sox, with it being Lucas Giolito for them. Total aside, I want to get your thoughts here, because I've actually been really impressed by Lucas Giolito this summer, and for Bradish, even though he looked okay in his minor league rehab starts, making your first start in late August is very less than ideal.
Yeah, it's not a recipe for success. You look at Bradish over the course of his career, he's a guy that 1.18 whip, 3.56 ERA, been very solid, especially the past two seasons, really has been dominant in those years. And, he only pitched in 8 games last season, but still good numbers before he went out there. And Lucas Giolito, this is a guy who's just continued to be up and down, but he's gotten into stretches where he's been really consistent. 8-2 with the 3.72 ERA, the 1.27 whip. The ERA on the road's currently a 3.65, and he's been slightly better on the road than he's been at home. And you really notice that with the opponent batting average, just 215 on the road compared to 284 at home. So I'll take the Red Sox in this game. I think they find a way to win it. The sign of Boston's success this season is in series like this. You have a good weekend against the Yankees, but you tend to struggle against lesser teams, especially on the road. Can you go out? Can you have a series win against Baltimore? And I think this is a game that on paper they should definitely take.
Yep, I think so as well. And I think that this is a series that does set up well for the Red Sox. We don't know what happened on Monday. I thought that was their most losable game. When you're trotting out there Brendan Bernardino as an opener, that's not necessarily a recipe for success, but overall feeling relatively good about the Boston Red Sox. And then I think that this is a spicy series, because I talked about the fact that I think that the Seattle Mariners are looking a little bit more solid out there in the American League. The Padres, they are right now clinging for dear life in terms of the National League West, as it's they and the LA Dodgers neck and neck coming down the stretch here. And for the Padres, Dylan Cease has had his issues this year. For the Mariners, Luis Castillo has had his issues this year. Total 7.5, and the Seattle Mariners about minus 120 or so on the money line. How do you take a look at a spot like this with two relatively big name pitchers that have not really lived up to their billing this year?
When I go off who's just playing good baseball right now, it's definitely the San Diego Padres. Even the Sunday loss to the Dodgers Dodgers when it was 8-2. I believe there was a grand slam robbed in the first inning by the Dodgers too. So that game, the trajectory of that entire game could have changed very quickly there. And they looked really good in the first game of the series, really good in the second one as well, where the Mariners, struggle against the Athletics. I know they took the series, but the first game was a very tight win. The second one was a 2-1 loss where they had opportunities, and they come out in game 3 and really get a lot of production out of a guy like Cal Raleigh with 2 home runs. So, guys like Cal Raleigh, he was struggling earlier in the week. He came alive late. He's a guy that's got to deliver. If he stays hot, obviously, Seattle's got a good chance in this one. But I'll take the Padres here with Dylan Cease on the road, even though he's been slightly worse than Luis Castillo. Both guys have been inconsistent, and I'll trust the team who's hitting the ball better right now.
Yep, and they have been hitting the ball relatively solid. And for the Seattle Mariners, obviously a team that went for it at the trade deadline, and the Padres, they made their moves at the trade deadline as well. So very nice to see some of those teams getting rewarded. And I do want to talk about this team because it has been Murphy's Law for the New York Mets over the last few weeks. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong. We've got a classic pick'em game between they and the Philadelphia Phillies, and Racist Luzardo, lots have went wrong for him over the last few months. Total on this game is 8.5, with both of these teams right around -105 to -110. How do you look at this one with a Phillies team that is now without Zach Wheeler, but we have seen some flashes of brilliance from Racist Luzardo, and for the Mets, it's just been a really, really bad run for them.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun series again because the Phillies have just owned the Mets lately. The Mets look like they had this division. They had a chance at 1.2, and then, around the All-Star break, it was pretty close, and then the Phillies just pull away because the Mets fall apart here. Looking at Jesus Luzardo, he's a guy, 3.3 ERA on the road this season, 81 strikeouts, and just, the overall theme right now, the Philadelphia Phillies, they still have a good starting rotation. They still have guys that can pitch. Obviously, the Zach Wheeler injury is a huge loss to them, but I wouldn't count this Phillies team out. Definitely their odds should get longer when it comes to the National League and the World Series, but they're still very much alive here. Luzardo, 4.1 ERA, 1.3 whip, going against Manaea, 1.2, 5.15 ERA with the 1.12 whip. When you look at New York, they had a little success against Atlanta taking that series, but I still don't think they've played good enough baseball really since the end of July to be confident with them against any team like the Philadelphia Phillies. So I will gladly take Philadelphia here to win the game.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Just with this sort of a price, I can't trust in the New York Mets right now. And do you think that there's a real chance that they miss the playoffs? Because right now the main team that is chasing them is the Cincinnati Reds, and they had a little bit of a less than savory series themselves against the Arizona Diamondbacks over the weekend. They were able to pull out that game on Sunday to avoid the sweep, but as things stood entering into Monday, the Mets about 1.5 games clear of them. The Diamondbacks are actually 5.5 games back, which I don't think that they're going to be able to make a run, but we're getting into that sort of bizarre world there. And for the Mets, I just have a fear that with the way that they have played on the road, 18-37 on the road, that could be the difference between them making and missing the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, a 1.5 game lead is definitely not safe right now. I'd say not even to be safe, but to be comfortable, a 4-5 game lead is definitely still on the verge of that. So the Mets got some work to do. I look at New York as they're much more talented than they've shown in the past month. They really have not played good baseball, but they're also, they're underperforming when it comes to pitching. Offense, they just can't put it together on any given night. And my biggest fear for them is they do have a relatively tough schedule moving forward. You got the Phillies, then you have 3 against Miami, or 4 against Miami, which should be not easy for a team playing bad, but those are games you got to win. Then you go with the Tigers, then a competitive matchup with the Reds, and that could decide the wild card ultimately. And then you go Philadelphia, Texas, San Diego, Washington, Chicago, Miami again to end the season. So there's some really tough matchups in there for them. I think they're going to make the playoffs because overall the strength of the team is stronger than what the Cincinnati Reds have, and they have underperformed drastically. So if they turn it up, I think they're going to be okay. But depending on the price, it wouldn't be a bad bet. I just don't necessarily see it happening, even though they only have that 1.5 game lead on the final wild card spot.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens out there in the National League in terms of that wild card chase, as that's going to be a fun one. And the American League is interesting as well. So Royals have picked up some steam, and now they get a golden opportunity. A series against the White Sox. Michael Lorenzen against Martin Perez on Tuesday with the Royals about -120, -125 favorites at a total of 8.5. Want to get your thoughts here because the way that I've been playing the Royals for much of the season has been playing a bunch of unders, and that has been quite fruitful for myself, especially with facing a White Sox team that, much like the Royals, are in the bottom 7 of the big leagues in terms of runs per game.
Yeah, I don't mind the under in this game at all. I mean, looking at Michael Lorenzen, 5.8, 4.5 ERA, 1.34 WHIP. Lorenzen's a guy that has not been great on the road, but Chicago doesn't have the best offense in the world. Neither does Kansas City. And you look at Martin Perez, been solid so far in 28 innings of work. The WHIP at 1.15, 2.5 ERA. He's only allowed 1 home run in 28 innings too. So that's something that you look at and you say, hey, this is a way to keep this game under. So definitely would lean on the under. I do think the Royals have struggled on the road this season, so I wouldn't necessarily pinpoint this as a time where they can necessarily climb back into the race, just 31 and 34 on the road. The Cubs have not been, or the White Sox have not been good at home. They have not been good at all this season. I wouldn't necessarily count out the White Sox throughout the series. You probably can get some pretty good plus money prices throughout it. And it's worth taking a chance on against a team like Kansas City, who, again, as you were saying, Greg, does not hit the baseball very well.
Yeah, the Royals have been pretty solid with regards to that bullpen, but Michael Lorenzen, pedestrian pitcher, has not been awful, has not been amazing, so we shall see what we're going to be getting on that front. And is there anything else that you're going to be taking a look at on the card for Tuesday? As we've got all 30 teams in action. Most of these games are on the board as we do this, so that's a little bit of a relief. But anything else that's really catching your attention?
I'm looking at a few games really, and especially in the American League, the Houston Astros going against the Colorado Rockies. Houston can continue pulling away in the division race there against the Seattle Mariners. So they're 2 games up right now. This is a really good opportunity for them to continue climbing and building that lead. Another game that I'm looking at here, I'm also very excited about the Toronto Blue Jays Minnesota Twins series. Can Toronto keep building that lead in the American League East? I mean, that division is definitely not wrapped up yet, even though they have that comfortable lead, but they have to continue playing well, because Boston does have the 20th easiest schedule in baseball moving forward. So a couple games I'm looking at, and then obviously Boston Red Sox versus the Baltimore Orioles, which we talked about, just because hopefully Boston can keep making playoff push for my fandom and for my betting.
Absolutely. Anyone with a Boston Red Sox futures ticket very much intently looking at this series, and it should be a fun one out there. And Tanner, I know you're doing an amazing job looking on so many different fronts. I know you're set for football. You've been doing a great job on the baseball front all season long. I know that when basketball rolls around, you're going to be doing a great job there and doing so much more. So let the good people at home know it's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yep, so you can find me on social media every single day on the DraftKings Sportsbook pages, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and then my personal is at Tanner Kern or at Tanner Kern _ depending on the platform. And then you can find my podcast Tuesdays and Fridays called Ride the Line, wherever you get your podcasts, with our friend Grant Mitchell.
Absolutely. Grant and Tanner are doing an absolutely tremendous job there. Every single time we are joined by Tanner, he does such an amazing job, and he did so once again today. So a big thanks to Tanner for joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VC Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Tuesday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Tanner Kern, who does such great work over at DraftKings, taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. Every single time he joins me, he lends such amazing insights, and he did so once again today. So a big thanks to Tanner for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Tuesday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at @GUnit_81, and we're going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, any intra-league games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So, but if we do get things started with 901, 902 on the betting board, it is the Atlanta Braves on the road against the Miami Marlins. Hurston Waldrop is on the bump for Atlanta. Sandy Alcantara is on the bump for the Fish, and the Marlins are a slight underdog, anywhere between -102 to a +104, -113 to a -120 is that number on Atlanta, and 7.5 is the total. The over is between -110 to a -115. The under is between -105 to a -110, and for the Miami Marlins, I did make them an underdog of +129. I just simply can't back Sandy Alcantara here. For Sandy Alcantara, as he looked a little bit better recently, sure, but but a 6.04 ERA overall for the season. Even if you just go back to his last 4 starts, he's still given up 14 runs, 13 of which have been earned. Yeah, his last 2 starts were a little bit better, but it's not saying a whole heck of a lot. He's only getting about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings. The 3.3 walks per 9 innings are the highest that he's had since 2019, so he's had a lot of struggles. 432 fielding dependent indicates that he's doing for a little bit of positivity. And has he been a little bit better at home? Yeah, he has been, mainly because his ERA on the road is an 8.03, so hard not to be. 4.76 ERA, and Hurston Waldrop has been really good for the Atlanta Braves. Former first-round pick. They tried to give him a few opportunities at the big league level last year. It didn't necessarily pan out for him. It's certainly panning out this year. He has made 4 total appearances, pretty much 4 starts, because the one long relief appearance was in that game that was being played at Bristol Motor Speedway that they called after an inning. So, we're going to call it 4 starts. 8.8 strikeouts at 2.2 walks per 9 innings. Has yet to give up a home run in 24 2/3 innings. Do I think that he's doing for a little bit of regression? Sure. He's also facing off against a Miami Marlins team that is in the bottom 3 in the National League in terms of runs per game at home. And they're dealing with an injury with Kyle Stowers being on the injured list. That has been rough. That's their top home run hitter with over 20 bombs, giving you about a 370 on base. That leaves Augustin Ramirez as the lone guy in the starting lineup that has given you above 11 home runs, 18 bombs, but only getting a 232. Now you've got guys that are moving the line. Jacob Marcy in a small sample size is sitting well above a 300. Xavier Edwards at the top, give you about a 290 average, nearly a 350 on base, and then you've been able to have Liam Ixby able to give you about a 350 on base. So these guys have been solid. They're looking to some of these younger guys like a Joey Weimer and company at the bottom of the fold to be able to give a bit of production. And for the Atlanta Braves, they do have Ronald Acuna Jr. back in the fold, 15 home runs, above a 400 on base. You've had Matt Olson and Marcell Ozuna both provide about a 360 on base. Ozuna only hitting for about a 230, but has been able to give you 20 home runs, so that's been pretty rock solid. You've been able to get more power out of Michael Harris, 253 average with 16 home runs. The problem with Michael Harris has been the fact that he is someone that is not really hitting for a lot of on-base percentage. His on-base percentage is right around about a 280, so that's a little bit of an issue, but Rickson Profar is starting to pick it up. He's up to 10 bombs. He's been able to give you some average. For the Atlanta Braves, this has been a hit-or-miss bullpen all season long, but you have had Pierce Johnson, Dylan Lee be able to give you a sub-325 ERA along with Desbel Hernandez, Mauricio Iglesias, and Aaron Bummer have been your main issues, posting up north of a 375 ERA. And for the Miami Marlins, this is a unit that is in the top 10 in terms of bullpen ERA since the beginning of the month of June. Ronnie Enriquez, Tyler Phillips, Blake Bakar, Anthony Bender, these guys have been able to give you a sub-345 ERA. So I do think that for the Miami Marlins, they're going to get another rough start out of Sandy Alcantara. It's just the way that it's been going all season for them, as Braves are in the top 7 in terms of runs per game since the All-Star break. Made my total at 8.4, so like the over, and the Braves up to a minus 128 on the money line. 9-3, 9-4 on the card. The Philadelphia Phillies are on the road against the New York Mets, as Sean Manaea goes for the Mets. Jesus Luzardo is on the bump for the Phils. The game is pretty much pick a minus 104 to minus 110 on both sides. Total on this game is 8.5. Over and under both at minus 110, and I did set my total at an 8.1. I'm going to be in on the under for the Phillies. I am willing to go up to a minus 104 on the money line. I made them a very slim favorite, as it's just been a really bad run for the New York Mets. I wish I could put it any other way, but for Sean Manaea, last few starts have been less than effective. 4+ runs allowed in each out of his last 4 starts. He's been able to get swings and misses this year with 11 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he's also giving up 1.5 home runs per 9 innings, 5.15 ERA, 3.93 fielding dependent. So I do think that he's doing for a little bit of positivity, and Jesus Luzardo is doing for a lot of positivity. 4.10 ERA, but a fielding dependent of a 3.04. He's still only giving up 0.9 home runs per 9 innings. He's getting 10.5 strikeouts per 9. He's been better recently, as he has given up a combined 8 earned runs over the course of his last 5 starts, after he just went straight down the toilet bowl in like June and July. Like those 2 months, he was rocking an ERA that was above a 6. He, in the first 2 months of the season, actually looked like a Cy Young candidate. So, it's been a wild up and down sort of season for him. And then when it comes to this Phillies lineup, not quite as effective away from him as it is at home, as, it's been Kyle Schwarber just absolutely carrying the mail for this team. 45 home runs, 370 on base. He has been absolutely magnificent. And then you do have Trey Turner, give you 32 stolen bases, hitting for a 300, as he and Nick Castellanos, a combined 30 home runs between the two of them. You do have Alec Boehm, JT Realmuto moving the line, both hitting about a 280, so that's been solid. Bryce Harper, 360 on base with 21 home runs. That's a main form of power to be able to support Kyle Schwarber, so that's been relatively solid. But with the Phillies, it has been a bullpen that has been in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of ERA. Been a little bit better recently because now you get Jose Alvarado back for the rest of the regular season. Cannot partake in the postseason due to the PED situation, but he's back for the regular season. I see Tanner Banks or Ryan Kerkering. These are guys giving you an ERA about a 3 to a 2.75, and then obviously Yohan Duran has been one of the best closers in all of baseball, so that helps stir things up a little bit. And for the New York Mets, things have been pretty disastrous with regards to some of their trade deadline pickups. I can tell you that Gregory Soto at some point was going to poop the bed. That I just sort of knew. Overall, he's been pretty solid in a Mets uniform, but sooner rather than later, things are going to fall out on him. Tyler Rogers has been solid, but the big issue that you've had for this team, man, it has not been great for our good friend Ryan Elsley. He's right now got north of a 9 ERA in a Mets uniform. Ryan Stanek has been awful. Oscar Berzobin is now above a 3.75 ERA. Reed Garrett has been fine, and Edwin Diaz has done his part. And for the Mets, it's a little bit of a top-heavy lineup. Quartet of guys with at least 20 home runs. Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, Juan Soto, and Soto's up to about a 3.90 on base with those 32 bombs. Now, you do have Mark Vientos starting to pick it up. He, Jeff McNeil, both with 12 home runs apiece. McNeil about a 3.50 on base. Brett Beatty, he's up to 15 bombs. He's hitting about a 2.45. Catcher spot has been a little bit hit or miss, but Francisco Alvarez has been away for a little bit more average. And Starling Marte of the Marte Parte, 3.60 on base. You do love to see that, but I do think that in the end, Luzardo's going to give you a little bit of a better start than Sean Manaea, but I do think that both of these guys do him for some positivity in what is a little bit more of a pitcher's ballpark, so I did set my tilt at 8.1. I like that 8.5 under, and for the Phils, minus 104 or better, I'm going to be willing to lay that money line. 9-5, 9-6 on the card. The Arizona Diamondbacks are on the road against the Milwaukee Brewers. Jacob Mizorowski, the Miz Kid, is on the bump for the Brewers, and Brandon Pfaadt goes for Arizona. Arizona is a underdog of between plus 128 to a plus 138. Meanwhile, minus 150 to minus 160 is the number on the crew with a total of 8. Over his minus 120, the under is even. If you're looking at that initial FanDuel opener with regards to Brewers run line, which these are always very much all over the place to say the least, but that said, right now, find that run line at a plus 128. I'd be willing to take it plus 108 or better. I was willing to go in. Now, for Jacob Mizorowski, he's been Jacob miserable in his last few starts since coming off the injury list. This has been very much less than savory for him. I do think that he's going to be able to pick it up a little bit, but that said, in his last few starts since coming off the injury list, he has won 5 1/3 innings and he has allowed 8 runs. He has overall for the season given you over 11 strikeouts per 9 innings. Does give up over 3.5 walks per 9, so I think that he's somewhere between A and B. I don't think that we see the same Mizorowski that got him to the All-Star game. At the same time, I don't think that we see 5 1/3 innings allowing 8 runs. And then for Brandon Pfaadt, well, it's been a battle for him. 4.95 ERA with 7.2 strikeouts and 1.4 home runs allowed per 9 innings this season, but that ERA balloons up to a 6.50 away from home with 2.6 home runs allowed per 9 innings. Now, it's not a Brewers team that's necessarily bombing the ball, and they're in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of their overall home runs on a per at-bat basis, but still number 3 in the big leagues in terms of run scoring with about 5.1 runs per game, albeit averaging closer to about 4.55 runs per game at home compared to over 5.6 runs per game away from home. That split still makes no sense whatsoever, and for the Brewers, they have been dealing with a few injuries in their lineup, as right now the lone guy that has over 16 home runs this season is Christian Yelich, who's been very good for the team, 26 home runs, but it's just top to bottom, all these guys finding a way to be able to move the line, get on base. Isaac Collins has been amazing with about a 3.72 on base. Andrew Vaughn in a Brewers uniform, about a 3.75 on base, and then just a poo-poo platter of different guys. They're giving you between about a 3.26 to a 3.65 on base. Caleb Durbin, the new acquisition in Brandon Lockridge, not sure where that's coming from. Sal Frelick, William Contreras, Bryce Terang, Yelich, all these guys doing a solid job. I think they've been without Rhys Hoskins and Jackson Trio for quite some time, and they've still been keeping things rocking and rolling. And this has been a bullpen that has been in the top 7 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA since the beginning of the month of June. Just a lot of good mix and match guys. Trevor McGill, Abner Uribe, Aaron Ashby, Grant Anderson, Nick Mears, all these guys who have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA, and you just don't have that on the flip side for the Arizona Diamondbacks. You've had Andrew Saalfrank be very good in this bullpen, actually, so that's been good for them. But past Andrew Saalfrank, you pretty much don't have anyone else that's giving you an ERA below 4. John Curtis with 2 S's is actually down to a 3.25 ERA, so we'll give him a little bit of a proper shout-out. But Jalen Beeks, Juan Murillo, Kyle Bacchus, Bryce Jarvis, whenever they've thrown him out there as a long guy, Jake Woodford, like all these guys are posting up a ERA above a 3.95. Juan Burgos has had his issues as well, so I do think that for the Brewers, they should be able to get to Pfaadt, and they should be be able to get the job done in what I think is going to be a high-scoring game. You've got an Arizona Diamondbacks team that I recognize is a little bit gutted, but even without Eugenio Suarez and without Josh Naylor, you still have Geraldo Perdomo give you about a 390 on base. Corbin Carroll's up to 27 home runs. Took him a little bit of time to be able to find his sea legs coming off the injured list, but he's been looking much better over the last 2, maybe even 3 weeks. You've been able to get some good production as well out of the old school catcher in James Buchanan, who's been able to give you about a 325 on base, so this has been encouraging. Alec Thomas is a guy that's able to move the line. Ketel Marte, 390 on base with 23 home runs, so circumstance where I set my total 9.2, I like the over, and I do like the Brewers at a plus 108 or better on that run line. 907, 908 on the card. The St. Louis Cardinals are going to be playing us to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Mitch Keller is on the bump for the Buccos, and Andre 3000 Palante is on the bump for the Cardinals. Total on this game is 8. The over and the under are both at minus 110, and for the Cardinals, they are between minus 120 to minus 126 favorite. Anywhere between plus 104 to plus 110 is that number on Pittsburgh. And with Pittsburgh, I did set them as an underdog of a plus 123, so was willing to go up to a minus 122 with this Cardinals money line for Andre 3000 Palante. I can't necessarily say that I'm the biggest fan of his. The one thing that he was doing well prior to this year was not really giving up the deep ball, but he's been giving up the deep ball a little bit more this year, as he's got a 5.17 ERA, 1.2 home runs, 3.2 walks allowed per 9 innings, while only getting about 6.2 punch-outs per 9. He has given up a whopping 15 runs over the course of his last 3 starts, and it's not even like he's been able to deliver a lot of length, as in those starts he has won a combined 12 innings, so that's not amazing. And for Mitch Keller, he throughout his career has just always had a lot of road struggles. He comes in allowing at least 5 runs in 3 out of his last 4 starts, 4.34 ERA, only 7.2 strikeouts per 9 innings. Now, to his credit, he's been only allowing 0.9 home runs per 9 innings this year, so that's been pretty rock solid, but for Mitch Keller, this is a career number, so not just a season number. 5.09 career road ERA compared to a 4.06 ERA at home, and his home runs per 9 rate jumps by over 25% when he's away from home, so that's a little bit less than tremendous. He's backed up by a Pittsburgh Pirates lineup that, well, you want to talk about less than tremendous. That has certainly been the Pittsburgh Pirates, as you've right now got Oneil Cruz, Andrew McCutchen, and Brian Reynolds as the lone 3 guys on the roster with over 7 home runs, and Oneil Cruz has been dealing with injury, so that's not great. And even when you've had Cruz in there, he and so many others are hitting below a 220 for this team. He, Jared Trollo, Lovar Piguero, Alexander Canario, Henry Davis, Jack Swiniski, all these guys are just giving you no average whatsoever. And then on the other end, you've got a St. Louis Cardinals team that they ain't been in the bottom 6 in the big leagues in terms of runs per game ever since the All-Star break. I will say Wilson Contreras has been able to give you some relatively good production. He's up to right around about a 345 on base. He's been able to give you 19 home runs. And then Brandon Donovan has moved the line for the team, but problem is Brandon Donovan is right now landed on the injured list, so that's not great. Mason Wynn has been able to about a 260 along with Contreras, so that's helping out a little bit. Alec Burleson, 15 home runs, about a 335 on base, respectable, but the young guys are not stepping up. Pedro Baez, Victor Scott, Nolan Gorman, Jordan Walker, so many guys hitting a 235 or lower without a lot of pop. That's an issue, though. You do have a Cardinals bullpen that's still relatively solid, even without Ryan Helsley, and Helsley has not been great for the Mets, so they probably don't want him back at this point. Jojo Romero, Riley O'Brien, Matt Savanson, these are all guys give you a sub 250 ERA. Kyle Leahy, more around about a 3.15, so they've been able to go out there, get the job done. And for the Pittsburgh Pirates, even without David Bednar, this has still been a fine bullpen. Not going to call it amazing, but you do have the likes of Isaac Madsen, Dennis Santana, who've been able to go out there, give you a sub 3 ERA. Braxton Ashcraft was good in the bullpen, but now they had to convert him into a starter. Chase Sugar to give you about a 3.50 ERA. He's been neither here nor there for this team, and they've had him go up and down from the majors to the minors, so they're giving more opportunities to the likes of Torey Moretta, which I don't necessarily understand, but that said, do think that the Pirates could have a little bit of a tough time getting to Palante, but both of these pitchers are in relatively rough form. This total of 8 does seem a little bit low. I'm going to be in on the over, so I might tell it at 8.3. And with the Cardinals, I'm willing to go up to a minus 122 on that money line. 909, 910 on the card. The Cubs are going to be on the road against the San Francisco Giants. Justin Verlander is on the bump for the Giants, and Matthew Boyd goes for the Cubs. The Cubs are between a minus 126 to a minus 132 favorites. They're between plus 108 to a plus 116 as that number on San Francisco, and the total on this game, it is 7.5. The over is between minus 110 to a minus 120. Under is between even and minus 110, and with the Cubs, I did set them at a minus 149. I'm going to be willing to lay the money line. I do believe that Justin Verlander has pitched better than his record, but it's really not hard to do when you consider the fact that he's got one more win than myself thus far this season. He has won 1-10 with a 4.64 ERA, got completely blasted in his last start, gave up 7 runs against the San Diego Padres. He's given up a combined 12 runs over the course of his last 3 starts, but I'm going to go with his .464 ERA, a .387 field independent. He is giving up 1 home run and 3 walks per 9 innings, and he does get to go up against the Cubs lineup that, if you look at things ever since the All-Star break, things have not necessarily been so harmonious for this lineup, as they, since the All-Star break, are in the bottom 5 of the big leagues in terms of runs per game. That has not necessarily been amazing, to say the least. They looked a little bit better in that series against the Angels, as Pete Armstrong, Seiya Suzuki, both of these guys have been able to give you 27 plus home runs, but we have noticed both of these guys have had some very much recent struggles for this team, but you saw plenty of guys that are moving line, like a Carson Kelly, to give you above a 360 on base. Nico Horner continues at above a 285. You've got Kyle Tucker, who's been able to give you 18 plus home runs. He's over a 350 on base. Michael Busch, over a 335 on base, 20 plus home runs out of him. So, 1 through 9 is very fearsome. I do think that they're going to be able to bounce back sooner rather than later, and this is a San Francisco Giants lineup that has had their issues with Rafael Devers just not giving what was promised. As for Rafael Devers, ever since they picked him up, things have toilet bowled for the team. In 59 games, he's had 10 home runs at a 226 average. You just expect much more than that, and you expect more out of Willy Adames. Over the last 35 days, he's sitting below a 210. 22 home runs. He's been able to pick it up a little bit in terms of power, but still not delivering on what was promised. Matt Chapman is just coming off the injured list. 16 home runs at a 337 on base, but again, he's hitting for just a 227. So you've got a lot of issues there. The entirety of the catcher spot has been less than savory. Luis Matos, he had a nice weekend, but he's hitting a 209 overall for the season. Now for the Giants, they're actually a top 3 team in terms of bullpen ERA, but that was with having Camilo Doval, Tyler Rogers in the lineup, Eric Miller as well, and Eric Miller is still with the team, but he's on the injured list. Randy Rodriguez, Matt Gage, Jose Buto, these are guys who give you a sub 350 ERA, so it's still relatively solid. And for the Chicago Cubs, it's been a little bit of an up and down bullpen. Still not quite sure why they decided to DFA Chris Flexen, but to have a lot of guys going out there give you a sub 3 ERA, as you've had that out of Daniel Palencia, Brad Keller, Drew Pomeranz, Caleb Theobar. These guys have been able to do a pretty rock solid job. Whenever we've had Luke Little out there, it's been a small sample size, but he's always been a bit of a roll of the dice. But that said, I do think that Matthew Boyd is going to be able to go out there and give you a really nice start all season long. He has been lights out for the Chicago Cubs team, even though he's not necessarily like as much of a strikeout pitcher as he was in his time with the Detroit Tigers back in the day. 261 ERA, about a 328 field dependent, only about 7.8 strikeouts per 9 innings. That is his lowest mark since 2021, but still, only 2 walks, 0.8 home runs allowed per 9 innings. I think that he goes out there, gets the job done. I did set the Cubs at a minus 148, like that money line, and here at a 7.5, I'm willing to go over semi-total at a 7.6. 9-11, 9-12 on the card. The LA Dodgers, they're going to be playing OC Cincinnati Reds, and yes, we're on to Cincinnati, who's on to Nick Martinez, getting the start for them. Clayton Kershaw goes for the Dodgers. Dodgers are anywhere between minus 172 to a minus 182 favorite, plus 149 to plus 158 is the number on the Reds. 8.5 is the total. Over is between minus 115 to a minus 120. Under is between even at minus 105. And for the Dodgers, I set their money line price at a minus 172. We go to the old FanDuel opener with regards to what that run line is. Currently finding that at a plus 108, and I would be willing to go to a plus 108. Pretty much that's my absolute bare bones minimum buy point on the run line, but it is regardless a buy point on the run line. For me, for Clayton Kershaw, he is not getting the swings and misses that he once did. This is a very ancient pitcher, to say the least. That said, for Clayton Kershaw, he's been able to do a nice job in terms of keeping the ball in the yard and not really hurting himself. He's only giving up 2.3 walks and 0.8 home runs per 9 innings, 3.13 ERA. Now, that is backed up by a 3.79 field independence, so you need to do a little bit better there, but he's still giving up only 5 earned runs over the course of his last 4 starts, so that's been pretty rock solid for this unit. For the Dodgers, they are starting to get healthy with the bullpen. Tanner, Scott, Kirby Yates, recognize both of these guys have an ERA that's hovering right around 4 overall for the season, but both of these guys being back in the fold, that should be able to help them out quite a bit. You've had Jack Dreyer, Alex Vesia, both be able to supply this team with a ERA below a 3.25 in that bullpen as well. Anthony Banda has been a little bit hit or miss, but I do think that he's going to be able to give you a little bit of something as well. And then for the LA Dodgers, this continues to be a team that's been able to hit much better at home rather than on the road. For the LA Dodgers, 4.6 runs per game away from home, 5.7 runs per game at home. No other team averages more than 5.3 runs per game at home. Now, without Max Muncy, if you looked at them in the month of July, they were actually in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of runs per game, and Muncy being out once again does hurt them quite a bit. But saw Freddie Freeman hitting for a 300 with 18 plus home runs. Will Smith has been able to get jiggy with it, 4 on base, 15 home runs. Teoscar Hernandez, Andy Paz, 21 home runs apiece, and then Shohei Ohtani, 390 on base, 45 home runs. I do think that they're going to be able to get to a pitcher contact guy in Nick Martinez that has been much like Clayton Kershaw this year. He has been doing a nice job not hurting himself. He makes sure that he's not going to be giving out a lot of walks, as for the season, 1.2 home runs and 2.1 walks per 9 innings. He's just not quite Clayton Kershaw with his 4.59 ERA, and he is backed up by a bullpen that is ho-hum. For the Cincinnati Reds, you've had Emilio Pagan give up quite a few deep balls, but he's still rocking an ERA below a 3.35. Tony Santillan has been solid, and then likes of Scott Barlow, Brent Suter are in that neighborhood about a 3.50 ERA, but for the Reds, other than Elly De La Cruz, you just don't necessarily have that fearsome guy. Spencer Steer is up to 16 home runs, but he's only hitting about a 2.35. Elly De La Cruz, 19 bombs, 3.50 on base. That's been solid. TJ Friedel, Gavin Lux, both above at 3.50 on base, but not really supplying a lot of power. You've had Austin the Say's kid be pretty stagnant over the last few weeks, so Niavali Marte has been able to hit about a 300 for this team, so interesting circumstance here. I did set the Dodgers at a minus 172 on the money line at a plus 108 or better, looking at that run line, and made my total at 8.7, so here at the 8.5, I do like the over. 9.13, 9.14 on the card. The Boston Red Sox are on the road against the Baltimore Orioles. Kyle Bradish goes for Baltimore. Lucas Giolito is on the bump for Boston. Boston, a minus 118 to a minus 125 favorite, and between even money to plus 107 is that number. Baltimore, 9 is the total, over and under anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115, and I did make my total 9.1. Here at the 9, I'm going to be willing to go in on the over. You just have to have a lot of question mark with Kyle Bradish making his season debut here in very late August. That's not necessarily a place where you want to be. Now, if you look at last season for Bradish, he only made 8 starts. He was getting 12 strikeouts per 9 innings and was rocking a 2.75 ERA. It looked like he was really going to bust out, and then injury hit. He has been able to make 6 minor league rehab starts. It's been a ho-hum. The strikeout stuff has been there with about 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he's also rocking a 4.91 ERA at the minor league level, so that's not necessarily amazing. He's been able to give you a little bit more length in his most recent few starts, so he can probably be able to give you 5 solid innings here, but you do have to question first start of the season coming in late August, what you're going to be able to get there. And then for Lucas Giolito, he has been very rock solid for the Red Sox this year. 3.71 ERA, 4.37 field independent, but if you look at more of the recent numbers, that's where he has been able to shine. As for Lucas Giolito, the first month and a half or so of the season, he was looking like a fade once again, much like he was with the Angels and so many others. But if you look at things since the 10th of June, so this is the last 13 starts for him, team is 10-3 in those starts. He has been able to post up a 2.55 ERA, given up about 1.2 home runs and 2.5 walks per 9 innings in that time span. Not amazing with the swing and miss stuff. He's barely getting over 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, but has done a nice job holding down the fort. And at this point, that's all that Boston needs, because the Red Sox have actually been very good with their bullpen thus far this season. As for this Red Sox bullpen, they are number 3 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA, with Aroldis Chapman being arguably the best closer in all of baseball. He's been able to supply a sub-150 ERA, but then you've got a lot of mix and match guys. The opener from yesterday, and Brendan Bernardino, Garrett Whitlock, who's a little bit more of a long guy, Justin Wilson. You go down the list of guys supplying a sub-325 ERA, and it's pretty rampant. They are dealing with an injury to Weiler Abreu on the offensive side of things, who's been leading the way with 22 home runs, but do have a lot of guys that in general just finding a way to be able to get on base and move the line for this team. Like, all these guys are in between a 249 to a 260. Trevor Story, Jaron Duran, Carlos Cervaya, Ceddanne Rafael, and the currently injured Mr. Abreu. So I think these guys have been solid there. Story would like to see that on-base percentage be higher than a 307, but he's been able to give you 22 home runs. Ceddanne Rafael is not necessarily giving you a ton of power, but Alex Bregman coming back, give you a 390 on base. That has been rock solid. Roman Anthony has been able to give you 390 on base. That's been good as well. And for the Baltimore Orioles, this is a team that is pretty gutted in terms of their lineup, because they've just underwent so many injuries that it's not even funny. Adley Rutschman is back down, but you've got Samuel Basallo, who in a very small sample size, the Orioles really like him, so that's good. Jordan Westberg was flying 15 plus home runs, and it looked like he was starting to really come alive. He's on the injured list. It's been a lost season for Dylan Carlson and Colton Cowser. Both of these guys hitting below 225 and not necessarily a ton of power. Jackson Holiday, along with Gunnar Henderson, have both been able to give you 15 home runs. You've had Henderson be able to hit for over a 270, so he's been able to do a nice job for this team as well. But Ryan Mountcastle has not necessarily been able to give you a lot of power either, and this is a Orioles bullpen that's currently in the bottom 6 of the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Now the long guys, Cedric Enns and Keegan Aiken in a Orioles uniform and an Orioles uniform only, a sub-375 ERA, but then you've got the likes of Grant Wolfram, Corbin Martin, Yennier Cano, Yarmil Hidalgo giving you above a 4 ERA. So circumstance where with the Red Sox, I set them at a minus 129 on the money line. I'm going to lay it with the Sox, and I'm going to be in on the over, so my total 9.1, 9.15, 9.16 on the card. The Rays are on the road against the Guardians. Parker Misek is on the bump for the Guardians, and the Wizard of Oz, Shane Baz, is on the bump for the Tampa Bay Rays, and the Wizard of Oz is right now the Wizard of being an underdog, anywhere between even money to a plus 110, minus 117 to minus 125. Then around Cleveland, total on this game is 8. The under is minus 120 and the over is even. I'm even seeing a 7.5 with the over at a minus 120 and the under is even, and I'm going to be in on the over. So I tell it at 8.7 with Misek. His first start was really good. 6+ innings. He allows 1 run, holds down the fort, and this is a pretty highly touted guy coming out of Florida State, was a second-round pick in the draft a few years ago, and at the minor league level, he did have some command issues with about 3.8 walks per 9 innings, but clearly is able to give you some swings and misses, and there is a lot of upside with him. For Shane Baz, there has been a lot of upside for him for quite a while, but man, things have really toilet bowls for him. 5.22 ERA with 1.7 home runs, 3.4 walks allowed per 9 innings, and 4+ runs allowed in now each out of his last 4 starts. That is not great, to say the least. And with our good friend the Wizard of Oz, he has been a little bit better on the road this year. He is having to pitch in Tampa outdoors this season, so that's maybe thrown him off a little bit because his ERA is a 7.06 at home, closer to 3.52 away from home, but still, it's not like he's been that great in either location, and he is backed up by a lineup that is solid for the Tampa Bay Rays. I'm not going to go out here and say that it's amazing or anything like that, but you've got Junior Caminero pounding 36 home runs. His on-base percentage has not necessarily been great, but his batting average has been solid. They are still dealing with the injury to Jonathan Aranda. He's been giving you nearly a 390 on base, but Brandon Lau, he's been able to get loud with 25 home runs. You've had Yandy Diaz hit for about a 280. He's been able to supply over 20 home runs, but you do have quite a few dead bats in the lineup as well. You've had Christopher Morel, Taylor Walls, the entirety of the catcher spot really not be able to produce too much whatsoever. It's Hunter Fiducia, who they picked him up at the deadline. He's right now hitting $143, so that has not been great, to say the least. And for the Rays, I don't understand why Eric Orze is right now at the minor league level, because you've got Pete Fairbanks along Garrett Clevenger are very rock solid in the bullpen with a sub 3.25 ERA, but Brian Baker, ever since they picked him up, has been bad. He and Griffin Jax are a pair of guys with well north of 4 ERA, and yet they're getting opportunities for some of these other guys, so that's not been great. And for the Cleveland Guardians, this has been a top 7 team in terms of bullpen ERA since the beginning of the month of June, even with Emmanuel Clase under investigation. You got the likes of Nick Enright, Eric Zabrowski, Cade Smith, Jacob Junis, who will be able to give you a sub 3.35 ERA. Now the issue that you've got for the team is that it's a very top-heavy lineup, as Jose Ramirez has been great, over a 350 on base, 26 home runs. Steven Kwan is sitting about at 275 at the top, and then you have a cavalcade of different guys that just have not been able to come through for you. It looks like Daniel Shima might be on the paternity list, as he's most likely going to be out of the lineup the next few days, but you've got a lot of guys like Gabriel Urias, Anel Martinez, Kyle Manzardo sort of hitting in that neighborhood of a 225 to 235, by the way. I know someone is on the paternity list for the Cleveland Guardians, so congratulations to them. And for Manzardo, he has been able to give you over 20 home runs thus far this season, but then you've got the likes of Nolan Jones, Bo Naylor, Austin Edges, backup catcher, David Fry, a lot of guys are hitting at 215 or lower for this team as well, so it makes it an interesting circumstance. I really just don't trust in Shea Baz whatsoever, so I did set the Guardians at a minus 131 on the money line. I'm going to be willing to lay with them, and I did set my total at 8.7 with the way that the Baz has very much struggled this year, so like the over and the Guardians on the money line. 917, 918 on the card. The Minnesota Twins are on the road. They're facing off against the Toronto Blue Jays. Chris Bassett has the hook, line, and sinker for the Jays, and Bailey Ober goes for Minnesota. And Minnesota does find themselves as a underdog of anywhere between plus 149 to a plus 158. Minus 167 to a minus 182 is that number on Toronto. 8 is the total. The over is between minus 115 to a minus 120. Under is between even a minus 105. And for the Jays, I did set them at a minus 192 on the money line. If you're looking to lay a run half right now, you have to utilize that old FanDuel opener, which is going to be very, very interesting to say the least. But right now, you're finding that at a plus 116, and I was pretty much willing to go anything above even money. So I'm going to be willing to take a shot on that run line for Chris Bassett. It's been an up and down sort of season for him, but he has been a whole heck of a lot better when he has been at home rather than when he has been on the road. For Bassett overall for the season, giving up about 1.3 home runs per 9 innings, 4.18 ERA, 4.14 fielding independent. That said, when you take a look at what he's been able to do at home, that home runs per 9 rate goes down to closer to about 1, and for Bassett, he has been posting up an ERA at home of a 2.73, while Bailey Ober has really struggled. 5.05 ERA, 7.3 strikeouts, 2.0 home runs allowed per 9 innings, and I mean, he's backed up by a bullpen that's completely gutted. You trade away Danny Kalum, Yohan Duran, Louis Varland, and that means that you're left with Cole Sands, Cody Funderburk, Michael Tonkin, a whole bunch of guys that are posting up above a 4 ERA, so that's been very much a less than savory for this team. What else has been less than savory has been the lineup, because they trade away the likes of Harrison Bader, Carlos Correa, so yeah, that's not necessarily been great to say the least. Byron Buxton is still giving you 25 home runs and about a 340 on base. Trevor Larnach is up to 16 bombs. He, Brooks Lee, both hitting between about a 240, 250, and Matt Wallner does have 17 home runs, but he and Cody Clemens are both hitting about a 210. Edouard Julien has been hitting at the Mendoza line 200, and he's not giving you any power whatsoever. They picked up James Ellman, but I mean, this guy has been out of his mind, man, hitting about a $131, so not great to say the least. And for the Blue Jays, number one team in the American League in terms of runs per game at home with about 5.3 runs per contest. You get Vlad Guerrero Jr. back in the fold after he was dealing with injury. He and George Springer both above a 380 on base, combined 43 home runs between the two of them. Bo Bichette has been able to darn near 300. He's up to 16 home runs. Dalton Varsho has been able to give you a home run every about 10 or so at bats. He's been able to give you 15 bombs. Don't call his name Alejandro Kirk has been able to hit about a 295 or so. So it's been a really good lineup from top to bottom. Even Ty France has been able to do a solid job in terms of being able to move the line, and for the Blue Jays, it's a about league average bullpen. Like, you've been having the likes of Yuriel Rodriguez, Louis Varland, along with Brandon Little, Braden Fisher, all provide a sub 335 ERA for the season. Varland, most of his numbers game with the Minnesota Twins, has had some struggles here with Toronto posting up over a 5 ERA, but he should be all round into form. Jeff Hoffman has had his issues as well, but that said, for Bailey Ober, I just don't think that he's going to be able to do his part. I think that he's going to get lit up, and then the Blue Jays take it to that bad bullpen. So by total of 9.1, I do like the over, and I do like the Blue Jays on the run line. 919, 920 on the card. The Chicago White Sox playoffs, the Kansas City Royals, as Michael Lorenzen goes for the Royals, and Martin Perez is on the bump for the White Sox. White Sox are anywhere between even money to plus 110, and between minus 120 to minus 125 is that number on the Kansas City Royals, and total on this game is 8.5. The over is minus 115, the under is minus 105, and when it comes to the Kansas City Royals, I did set them at a minus 128 on the money line, so I'm going to be willing to lay here. Martin Perez and his small sample size has actually been quite solid for the White Sox, and the White Sox have actually had some solid pitching thus far this season. The problem has been the offense, which we're going to get to in a minute, but that's up for Martin Perez. Again, he spent a lot of time on the injury list. 251 ERA, not a strikeout artist, but he's up to about 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, 4.1 walks per 9 innings, a little bit uncharacteristic of him, but he's given up 1 home run in 28 and 2/3 innings in his 2 appearances since coming off the injury list. 2 runs, one of which has been earned over the course of 8 and 2/3 innings, so he's been able to hold down the 4-9 for the White Sox. It's not an amazing bullpen, but it's not an awful bullpen. The long guys have actually been really good for this team, as it's been more of the shorter guys like a Jordan Leisure, Brandon Iser, guys like this have been rocking a north of 4 ERA, as Mike Vasil's a long guy, has been able to give you sub 250 ERA. Steven Wilson is right around about a 310 ERA, and then Tyler Gilbert, Tyler Alexander, longer guys give you about a 342 or 350 ERA, but it's a White Sox team that's in the bottom 5 in the big leagues in terms of run scoring, as Lennon Sosa is right now leading the way with 17 home runs, hitting at 270, and then you've got a quartet of guys between 13 and 14 home runs. Colson Montgomery, Miguel Vargas, Luis Robert, Ender Benintendi, and all these guys are in between a 225 to a 235 with really not a lot of on base, and then you've had Brooks Baldwin now hit for about a 240, but not giving you a lot of power, 288 on base. Michael A. Taylor's been hitting about a 215. Joshua Palacios, Joshua Rojas, those are guys that just didn't pan out. The catcher spot is themselves. Kyle Teal and Edgar Kier are both hitting above a 270, so hey, you got a little bit of something there, but that said, I do think that for the Royals, you're going to be able to get a okay start out of Michael Lorenzen. Michael Lorenzen has been about a league average pitcher thus far this season. He's not going to blow you away with his swing and miss stuff. He's going to give up a few walks, but he's not going to completely implode on you. A 450 ERA, 442 field independent, 1.4 home runs, 2.7 walks allowed per 9 innings. He's actually been on a relatively solid run here recently. He has given up 7 runs, 6 of which have been earned over the course of his last 4 starts, and he is backed up by a bullpen that has Lucas Hurstad, Carlos Aceves, pair of guys who have been able to give you a sub 3 ERA. You've got Daniel Lynch off the injured list, which helps. It's been hot and cold with the likes of Sammy Long and company, and now they are dealing with an injury to Steven Cruz being on the injured list. But the big thing for the Royals is that they've actually been in the upper half of the big leagues in terms of runs per game since the beginning of the month of July. But even with that, there's still a bottom 6 team in the big leagues in terms of run scoring, as John Rave and the other young guys, Nick Lofton, the currently on the injured list Jack Caglione, down. These guys have just not really given you a lot. Vinny Pasquantino is on fire. 28 home runs, 325 on base. Salvador Perez has picked it up with power as well. He's up to 22 bombs himself. Miguel Garcia is hitting for a 322 stolen bases and 13 home runs. You'll take that. Bobby Witt Jr., 355 on base, 19 home runs of his own. But then you've got someone like Kyle Isbell sitting for a respectable 265, but no power whatsoever. Expect more out of Jonathan India, 235 average, 8 home runs. That's not necessarily what you acquired, so it's an interesting circumstance here. Do think that you get a little bit of a lower scoring game. I set my total at an 8.2, so you're at the 8.5. I do like the under, and I do like the Royals on the money line. Willing to go up to a minus 127, 921, 922 on the card. The Angels are on the road against the Walker Texas Rangers. Patrick Corbin, the old turkey tosser, is on the bump for Texas, and Yusei Kikuchi. I say that he's starting for the Angels. 8.5 is the total. The under is minus 115. Over is minus 105 for Texas. They're between minus 112 to minus 120 favorites. They're between minus 102 to a plus 103 is that number on the LA Angels. And I did set the Texas Rangers at a minus 124. I'm going to be willing to lay the money line for Patrick Corbin. He's starting to look a little bit more like the Patrick Corbin that we all know and love, and that's not a good thing for the Texas Rangers. Now up to a 4.61 ERA has given up at least 3 runs in each out of his last 5 starts, albeit in one of those starts there were a few unearned runs, but he has been a whole lot better when he has been at home rather than away from home, as Texas has just been playing very pitcher-friendly thus far this season for Mr. Corbin. A 3.65 home ERA goes up to over a 5.4 when he's away from home, and when he has been away from home, he certainly has been allowing quite a bit more of the deep ball. 12 home runs in 66 and a third innings. Compared to at home, 6 home runs allowed in 56 and 2/3 innings. So that's a little bit less than a home run per 9 innings allowed when he is at home. And for Yusei Kikuchi, he's got some pretty big home and road splits as well. As for Kikuchi, you also have the walks issue with him as well. As for Kikuchi, 3.7 walks allowed per 9 innings, posting up 3.42 ERA for the season, 3.98 fielding dependent. He's getting about 1.1 home runs allowed per 9 innings and has given up now 4+ runs in 3 out of his last 5 starts, but getting to the home and road splits, he has been posting up a 2.30 home ERA. His home runs per 9 is actually relatively similar when he's at home rather than away from home, but ERA goes all the way up to a 4.76 away from home. And if you look at the Rangers overall for the season, it has been a bottom 7 team in terms of runs per game, but they, ever since the beginning of the month of July, have been able to post up right around about 4.6, 4.7 runs per game, so they've been much better with this regard. Now, Evan Carter, it looks like his season is done. That's not necessarily amazing, and they've been dealing with some injuries, so like Marcus Semien and company. Adolis Garcia just not really getting on base, 270 on base, so he is up to 17 home runs. Wyatt Langford and Corey Seager have been carrying the mail for this team, 19 home runs apiece. Langford now hitting about a 250, and Seager up to a 370 on base. Jake Berger has just had an all-over-the-place season, to say the least, and he's back on the injured list, so that has been a little bit less than tremendous. They get back Jock Peterson, but he's having a season to forget as well. But Rowdy Tellez, ever since they picked him up, 353 on base with 4 home runs in his first 60 at-bats, so yay, verily there. And for the Rangers, they have been a top 8 team in terms of bullpen ERA all season long. It's just been a lot of mix and match, ragtag sort of guys that have been able to do it as well. You've got Chris Martin on the injured list, but Hobie Milner, Sean Armstrong, Cole Winn, these are guys that have been able to give you a sub 285 ERA. You've had Robert Garcia start to regress a little bit with about a 350 ERA, and then on the other end, it has been a bullpen that has been very, very shaky for the Los Angeles Angels, to say the least, as you've got Brock and Roll Burke and Kenley Jansen both posting up a sub 325 ERA, but not having Under Strickland in the fold is right now hurting this team, and then just have a lot of guys in general that have not done the job for this team. Ryan Zefrian, Reed Detmers, Sam Bachman, Jose Fermin, Carson Fulmer, all posting up an ERA above a 4, and it's an all-or-nothing Angels team. Bottom 7 team with regards to on-base percentage, top 5 team in terms of home runs that are per at-bat basis. Joe Adell setting fire to the rain with 29 home runs, but he's also setting fire to a 298 on base. 30 home runs for Taylor Ward, about a 233 average. Nolan Schuno, he's been able to get on base, 355 on base. Same with Zach Neto, about a 265 average, 21 home runs. But Mike Trout, even he, though he does have a 366 on base, 20 home runs, 235 average, and Logan O'Hoppe, 266 on base with his 18 home runs. So, circumstance where I do think that the Rangers go out there, get the job done. I set them at a minus 124, so like their money line, made my total in 8.7, so I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the 8.5 over. 923, 924 on the betting board. It is the Detroit Tigers, and they're on the road facing off against the Athletics. We do know that it is going to be one Mr. Charlie Morton on the bump for the Tigres, and as of right now, it's all to be determined on the bump for the Athletics, so this is a game that is presently off the board. And for the Athletics, they have been throwing a lot of Jack Perkins in this spot, so I would think that perhaps you are going to be able to get Jack Perkins, unless if there's some sort of an injury that might be occurring, as I know that there was talk of him going on the injury list or not. If you don't get Jack Perkins, you would have to think that perhaps it's going to be a mix and match game with a lot of long guys. They did have to use up Joey Estes a few days ago, as Waldo Beto might be a little bit of a candidate here, and if you do get something like Osvaldo Beto as a little bit of a long guy and just like a poo-poo platter of pitchers sort of bullpen game, I would be setting the Detroit Tigers as about a minus 150 on the money line, so I'd be willing to go up to a minus 149 there, plus 151 or higher. We'll be looking at the Athletics, and pretty much if I could get anything of plus money on the run line, I would be looking at the Detroit Tigers, and that would be a circumstance where I'd be setting my total to where a 10 or less, I'd be in on the over, a 10.5 or higher to the under. I set my total at 10.4, as for Charlie Morton, he's been a little bit better here ever since he was just absolutely horrible in the first month and a half of the season. For Charlie Morton, he still does have the walks issue this year, 5.09 ERA. He's been giving up about 4.1 walks per 9 innings, but he still is getting the strikeouts, even though he's at 40 plus years old. He's been able to get 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but you take a look at what Charlie Morton has been able to do ever since he got demoted to the bullpen back when he was with the Baltimore Orioles, because he had just a few really bad starts, to say the least. So we'll go from May 10th on. This is going to involve a few long relief appearances, but in his last 18 appearances, he's been posting up a 3.62 ERA. He is still getting about 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. The walks per 9 rate has been a little bit more respectable at a 3.3. And then for the Athletics, this is a bottom 5 team in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. If you do get Beto as a little bit of a long guy, he's posting up an ERA above a 5. If you have Michael Kelly, Sean Newcomb be able to give you sub 350 ERA, these guys have been relatively solid. You have to think that they would factor in to a little bit of this game, as well as I think that it's going to be all hands on deck, because again, I don't know for sure, but it looks like Perkins might be hitting the injured list, which is why he's not the listed starter, and it's going to be up to the Athletics to really try to slug their way to victory, as you've got a quartet of guys who would be able to give you at least 23 home runs. Tyler Soderstrom, Shea Langeliers, Nick Kurtz, Brent Rooker, and Kurtz both up to 26 home runs, and Kurtz nearly a 400 base. Shea Langeliers, Shea is banged for 28 home runs. You've got Tyler Soderstrom hitting for a 270 with 23 home runs. Bottom of the lineup has been a little bit rough, but now you're getting back Jacob Wilson, who's hitting above 300. Really doesn't draw a lot of walks, but he gets on base. Lawrence Butler has been able to give 17 home runs, so you've seen that on base percentage fall to below a 300, and then you've had Darrell Hernandez be able to give you about a 315 on base, not really a ton of power. Kobe Thomas, in a small sample size, has been able to bet a 260, so a little bit of a top-heavy lineup there. And then for the Detroit Tigers, you've got a lot of consistency through the lineup. Typically, you have at least 7 guys in the lineup hitting at least a 255. Whenever Trey Sweeney starts at the shortstop spot, he has not been doing that. And then you got Spencer Torkelson hitting about a 243, but he's been able to spy a 336 on base, 28 home runs. We've got Riley Green hitting 31 bombs, hitting a 265. Gary Carpenter, 22 bombs. He's been able to about a 255. Juancio Perez is moving the line. Javi Baez continues to hit for about a 265 along Zach McKinstry. So these guys have been solid. Now what has been an issue for the Detroit Tigers is that since the beginning of the month of June, this has been a bottom 7 unit in terms of bullpen areas. Tommy Kahnle has just been absolutely awful for this team. Chase Lee is so bad that I'm pretty sure that they either DFA'd him or sent him down to the minor league level. So that's been a little bit of an issue. They've been looking to mix and match some of these relievers. Like they sent up their Cody Hewer for a few appearances. They decided to cut bait on that as well. Luke Jackson has not been able to perform for this team. Brian Herter has been very solid with a sub 250 ERA, but they sent him down to the minor leagues. I have no idea why they did that, but they did, so there's that aspect of things. So Troy Millen has been a good long guy. He's been able to give you a 3 ERA as well, so do you think that this is a high-scoring game? Minus 149 or better looking at the Tigers, or plus 105 or better, the run line, plus 151 or better looking at the Athletics, and then 10 or less, I'm down the over, 10.5 or higher, the under, 925, 926 on the card. The Nationals are on the road against the New York Yankees. Luis Eel is on the bump for the Yankees, and Mackenzie Gore hopes to not get gored for the Nationals. The Nationals do find themselves between plus 149 to plus 157 underdogs, minus 170 to minus 182. Then number on the Yankees, 8.5 is total. Over is minus 120, and the under's even, and set the Nationals at a plus 157. So we're getting right to that buy point on the Nationals money line that I'm willing to take. For Mackenzie Gore, it has been a rough go of it ever since the All-Star break, to say the least. For Mackenzie Gore, he's still doing a good job in terms of getting swings and misses and punch-outs. He's up to about 10.7 strikeouts per 9 innings, but 3.5 walks per 9 innings, and 1.2 bombs allowed per 9 innings, as he has had a pretty miserable run of things, to say the least. 19 runs allowed over the course of his last 5 starts, so that's been a little bit rough. But I mean, for Luis Eel, he is the living form of Rick the Wild Thing Vaughn a 4.26 ERA. He is getting overall for his career 10.2 strikeouts per 9 innings. He has come off the injury list, so it's been a little bit more rough there. Only about 8.1 strikeouts per 9 innings this season in his 4-start sample size, but for his career, 4.9 walks per 9 innings, 6.2 walks allowed per 9 innings this year. He is actually very fortunate to not have greater than a 4.26 ERA. That last start against the Red Sox, he Houdini'd his way out of a lot of situations, and it's not like he's backed up by some sort of an incredible bullpen. Now, is it better than the Washington Nationals? Yes, because you've got the likes of Edward Salazar, Jackson Rutledge, whole bunch of guys posting up over a 5 ERA. Zach Brzezinski was getting some appearances a little bit earlier in the season. Shunikusi Osawa has actually been halfway decent for them, but yeah, that is a bullpen that is dead last in the big leagues in terms of ERA. But it's not like the Yankees have necessarily been amazing as well. Brent Hedrick has been one of their better relievers. He's now on the injury list. Yuri De Los Santos, Luke Weaver are both posting a sub-3 ERA, and ever since they picked up David Benner, he's been able to give you a few solid appearances, but even in a Yankees uniform, he's posting up about a 3.50 or so ERA. Jonathan Loaiza at the injured list. Mark Leiter Jr. is posting up a 4 ERA, and Devin Williams is just terrible. And for the New York Yankees, it's all about the power with this team. Aaron Judge, 40 bombs, 440 on base. He has been rock solid. And then you've got a trio of guys between 24 and 25 home runs. Cody Bellinger, Trent Grisham, along Jazz Chisholm. And then for Grisham, he's been able to give you 350 on base. Cody Bellinger is hitting at 270. Chisholm has been able to give you 335 on base. And Giancarlo Stanton getting a home run every 10 or so at-bats. He's been able to 305. And strangely for the Washington Nationals, this lineup has been a whole heck of a lot better away from home rather than at home. For the Washington Nationals, they've been in the upper half of the big leagues level with regards to their run scoring away from home. They're averaging about 4.6 runs per game away from home, closer to about 4 runs per game at home. CJ Abrams, he's the prime example of this. As for Abrams, he has overall for the season 17 home runs, hitting in the neighborhood about a 265. 14 of those home runs have come away from home. Like, very, very strange to say the least. And then you've had James Wood give Goodwood 26 home runs, 350 on base. So his home run power ever since the home run derby has really fallen off the map. They DFA'd Nathaniel Lowe. He's now on the Boston Red Sox. That's a little bit of an issue, but Josh Bell, since the All-Star break, hitting above a 275. He's been able to pound out 16 home runs. The young guys have not really stepped up for the team. Got the likes of Robert Assel, Brady House, Dallin Lyle, who just don't give you a lot of power. Now, Lyle's hitting about a 260. Other two guys give you less than a 300 on base, so that's been an issue. Andres Chaparro, in a small sample size, has not necessarily been great either, but that said, for Luis Gil, you just don't know what you're going to be able to get out of him, and I do think they get knocked out of the start early, so I might total it at 8.7, so you're at the 8.5, like the over, and for the Nationals, we'll take a shot on the money line at a plus 157 or greater. 927, 928 on the card. The Rockies are on the road against the Astros. Hunter Brown is on the bump for the Astros. Tanner Kern goes for Colorado. 8 is the total. Under is minus 115. The over is minus 105. Between minus 315 to minus 335 is that number on Houston. Between plus 257 to a plus 277 is that number on Colorado. And the hilariously high FanDuel opener with regards to the run line of the Astros is a minus 160. And I'm willing to go up to a minus 168. Tanner Gordon has not been great, to say the least. Now, his last start against the LA Dodgers, he actually looked like a competent pitcher, so yay, barely there, but man, this has not been a great season, to say the least, for our good friend and one Mr. Tanner Gordon, as he's got a 7.11 ERA, so he's always open to giving up runs. He's only giving up 1.2 home runs and 2 walks per 9 innings, but 5.5 strikeouts allowed per 9 innings, and I mean, man, these are just not savory numbers, to say the least. He has given up 28 runs, 27 of which have been earned over the course of his last 5 starts. That is not good. And then for Hunter Brown, he has been a whole lot better for the team. Even though he got the no decision and the team eventually lost in his last start against the Detroit Tigers, he did a very good job there. 6 scoreless innings there, and he has given up a combined 5 runs over the course of his last 5 starts. Had a little bit of doldrum period in late June, early July. He has bounced back, and he's bounced back in a big way. 236 ERA, 291 fielding independent, 10.3 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's giving up 0.7 home runs per 9, and he's facing a Colorado Rockies team that is dead stinking last in the big leagues in terms of runs per game away from home. They're dead last in the big leagues in terms of on-base percentage away from home as well. Hunter Goodman, 25 home runs, over half of them have come on the road. That's a little bit encouraging for the team, but the team as a whole is giving you a 266 on base and a 209 average away from home, as you got a lot of guys who have been very rock solid, hitting nearly a 300 at home, that on the road they lose their superpowers, like Orlando Arcia, Mickey Moniak, Ezekiel Tovar, Brenton Doyle. All these guys are hitting at 210 or lower away from home, all with 7 home runs or fewer on the road this season, so that's been very much less less than tremendous. And then for the Rockies, this bullpen has also been less than tremendous. Second worst in the big leagues in terms of their bullpen ERA. Victor Vodnik, Jimmy Herget, both of these guys have been able to give you a sub 350 ERA. Jaden Hill has not been too bad either, but then you get into the likes of Juan Mejia, Nick Anderson, when he's been out there, Anel Shavili, these guys posting up well above a 4 ERA. Zach Ognos is on the injury list, not necessarily a bad thing. He's been rocking well above a 5 ERA. And then for the Houston Astros, it has been a case where this bullpen has had some adventures recently with Josh Hader being out of the fold, but you still have a lot of guys that have been able to do a nice job holding down the fort for this team. The Bryants, Brian King, Brian Abreu, Bennett Sosa, Steven Okert, these are all guys give you a 3.02 ERA or better. They are now looking to Craig Kimbrell. That's not necessarily a place where you want to be, but for the Houston Astros, you do have Jose Altuve pounding out 22 home runs, hitting at 275. You've had Christian Walker, Yanier Diaz, not give you a lot of on base, 302 on base or worse with regards to both of these guys, but that said, you've got a combined 37 home runs out of these two guys. Isaac Paredes being on the injury list has been an issue, and you've had Cam Smith have a little bit of regression, but now Mauricio Dubon, Victor Garantini, both hitting above a 250, and for Garantini, he's up to 11 bombs. You've got Jake Myers hitting about a 300, so do think that the Astros go out there, dominate this game. I set their run line price at a minus 168, so looking at that run line, semi-total at 7.8 as well, because I just don't think that the Rockies do their part with this total, much like that Paul Skeens game a few days ago. So looking at the under and the Astros on the run line, and we wrap things up with 929, 930 on the card. The San Diego Padres set the road to face off against the Seattle Mariners. Luis Castillo is on the bump for Seattle. Dylan Cease goes for the Padres. Padres are between a even money to a plus 105 underdog, and between minus 112 to a minus 125. Then number on Seattle, and 7.5 is the total. Overs between minus 115 to minus 120. Unders between even a minus 105. And for the Mariners, I did set them at a minus 124, so I'm going to be willing to take a shot on them on the money line. And for Luis Castillo, it's been a case where he has been a whole lot better when he has been at home rather than when he's been on the road. For Castillo overall for the season, a 3.57 ERA, close to a 4.01 fielding, depending on his strikeout stuff is way down. 7.8 strikeouts per 9 innings. That is by far a career low, but it's as if he gets his superpowers back when he's at home. 2.41 home ERA. At home, he's getting about 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings compared to 7 on the road. And his home runs per 9 rate is about 1.1. On the road, it goes up to about 1.3, and he's posting up a 5.04 ERA away from home. Now, much of this is because Seattle is very much a pitcher-friendly ballpark, and that is indicated by the fact that the Seattle Mariners have been one of the best road-hitting teams in all baseball, about 4.95 runs per game away from home compared to 4.15 at home. But you do still have Eugenio Suarez, who's been hitting below the middle line 200 ever since he got to Seattle, so he's going to need to improve that a little bit. That said, you got big jumper Cal Raleigh, 49 home runs over a 350 on base. You've been able to have J.P. Crawford give you a 355 on base. Randy Arozarena, Julio Rodriguez, both between 24 to 25 home runs apiece with Arozarena, give you about a 340 on base. Rodriguez has been able to 260. Ori Polanco has won a little bit cold recently, but had a home run, I believe, in their previous series, 19 bombs. He's hitting about a 250, so you got a lot of guys that are supplying with that regard. And then on the other end, it's a San Diego Padres team that is in the bottom 3 in the big leagues in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis. Ramon Laureano, between his time with the Orioles and the Padres, up to 19 home runs, over a 340 on base, and Ryan O'Hearn, 14 plus home runs. He's been able to give you over a 350 on base as well. And you've got guys that are able to move the line for the team, like Jake Cronenworth, 357 on base, albeit it comes with a 240 average. When Jackson Merrill's been out there, as he has been all sorts of banged up this season, he's been able to give you about a 320 on base, and he's back on the injury list, so that's a little bit less than amazing. But I mean, for Fernando Tatis Jr., 373 on base has been solid. He's been stuck on 17 home runs for an eon. Gavin Sheets has been able to give you 17 home runs. He's hitting about a 255. Xander Bogaerts is now hitting about a 265. Doesn't give you a lot of power, but he's getting on base. And then Manny Machado, 1 home run in like his last 10 games, but he's been able to give you about a 350 or so on base as well. This is a Padres team that's currently number 1 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERAs. You've got so many guys that will come out there and do their part. David Morgan, Adrian Morejon, Jason Adam. These guys have all been very rock solid, being able to give you a sub-3 ERA. Mason Miller in a Padres uniform has been solid, though he's been a little bit sketchy thus far this season, and even Wandy Peralta has given you a 3 ERA. And for Dylan Cease, it's a case where he's due in for a lot of positivity, but who knows when that's going to be coming, because for Dylan Cease, 4.71 ERA compared to a 3.65 fielding dependent. He's giving up 1.2 home runs per 9 innings. That's more than what you'd like, but he's still getting 11.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, 3.8 walks per 9 innings. Obviously, he's knocking himself out of starts early, but And you'd expect the results to be much, much better than what they are. He's given up 4+ runs now in 3 out of his last 5 games. And then on the other end, you've got a Seattle Mariners team that does have Matt Brash, Andres Munoz, Gabe Spire, Edward Bazardo. I'll give you a sub 335 ERA. These guys have been solid. Not quite as good as the San Diego Padres with regards to their bullpen, but this is a Seattle Mariners team that's right around 12th with that regard. So do think that the Mariners go out there, get the job done. Did set a low total here of 7.3, so at the 7.5, like the under, and the Mariners up to a -123 on the money line. And that'll wrap things up for the Tuesday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Big thanks to Tanner Kern of DraftKings for joining me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of 2 ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, the me does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review, and giving it to you guys every single day throughout the baseball season, regular season, and postseason. So I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.